First contact under fire. The crystalline spires of Eridani Prime sparkled under the light of 3 moons, their once pristine surfaces now marred by scorch marks and structural damage. Inside the Grand Council chamber, Ambassador Thila's luminescent skin flickered with distress as she addressed the assembled leaders, her 4 arms gesturing at the holographic display dominating the center of the room. "The Vex have taken Outpost Serenity," she announced, her melodic voice strained. "That marks the 5th colony world lost in just 2 cycles." High Counselor Everin's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with sorrow as he studied the galactic map. Red markers indicated fallen Eridani worlds, spreading like a disease from the outer territories toward their homeworld. The Eridani, a species that had evolved through scientific curiosity and peaceful exploration, now faced extinction at the hands of the Vex Dominion, a hive-mind collective bent on assimilation and resource extraction. "Our defensive technology cannot match their weapons," the defense minister said, his skin dimming to a dull blue. "The Vex adapt too quickly. Each time we develop a countermeasure, they overcome it within days." Everin's gaze lingered on an unexplored sector beyond the Azure Nebula. "What of the species our long-range probes detected in this region? The ones with the expanding territory? The humans?" Ambassador Thila's skin brightened slightly. "We've observed them from a distance but never initiated contact. Our analysts suggest they are unpredictable. Their historical records show frequent internal conflicts." "That very unpredictability might be what we need," Everin replied. "Prepare our fastest diplomatic vessel. We must seek allies or face annihilation." 3 days later, the Eridani ship Stellar Harmony emerged from the swirling gases of the Azure Nebula, its crystalline hull refracting starlight into prismatic patterns. Captain Neris stood on the command deck, her 4 arms working simultaneously across multiple control surfaces as she guided the vessel toward human space. "Detecting an artificial structure at coordinates 42 to 8917, reported the sensor officer. "It appears to be a space station or outpost." "Open communication channels," ordered Ambassador Thila, who stood beside the captain. "Broadcast our peaceful intentions using the mathematical sequence." On the view screen, a structure came into focus, angular and utilitarian compared to the flowing crystalline architecture of Eridani design. Multiple vessels of varying sizes docked along extended arms, suggesting a busy trading hub. "We're receiving a response," the communications officer announced. "Audio and visual." The view screen shifted to show a being with flat features, bilateral symmetry, and a covering of short, dark fibers on the top of its head. Its skin was a rich brown color, and its eyes, startlingly simple with white surrounds and dark centers, studied them with unmistakable curiosity. "This is Commander Elena Rivera of the United Earth Alliance Outpost Horizon. We're tracking your approach. Identify yourselves and state your purpose." Thela stepped forward, her luminescence shifting to a welcoming pattern. "I am Ambassador Thila of the Eridani Confederation. We come seeking dialogue on a matter of great urgency." Commander Rivera's expression remained neutral, but her eyes narrowed slightly. "Maintain your current position. A security team will board your vessel for standard protocols. Any hostile action will result in immediate defense measures." Within minutes, a small vessel departed from the station and docked with the Stellar Harmony. 6 humans entered wearing form-fitting environmental suits, though they removed their helmets once aboard. Their leader, a tall figure with close-cropped silver hair and dark skin, marked with fine lines around the eyes, stepped forward. "Captain Marcus Chen, UEA Security Division. Welcome to human space, though I must say your arrival is unexpected." Inside a conference room aboard the outpost, Ambassador Thila presented their case. The humans watched in silence as holographic displays showed Vex attacks, the fall of Eridani colonies, and the systematic harvesting of resources and population. "The Vex assimilate technology and adapt rapidly," Thila explained, her luminescence dimmed with emotion. "They seem to process information collectively, allowing them to evolve countermeasures to our defenses within days of engagement. Commander Rivera exchanged glances with Captain Shin. These Vex, we've encountered them before, though not in full force. Small scouting parties at our outer territories. Thila's skin flashed with surprise. You fought them and survived. A strange expression crossed Rivera's face. What the Eridani would later learn was a smile, though it contained little warmth. We did more than survive, Ambassador. We drove them back. Hope flickered in Thila's bioluminescent patterns. Then you'll help us. Rivera leaned forward. This isn't my decision alone. I'll need to consult with Alliance Command, but I can tell you this. The Vex represent a threat to both our civilizations. As they left the conference room, Thila overheard two human officers speaking quietly. If the Vex have established that large a foothold, it's only a matter of time before they reach us, one said. Better to fight them in Eridani space than our own, replied the other. Thila realized then that these humans might help her people not from compassion alone, but from pragmatism. And somehow, that was more reassuring than any promises of friendship could have been. 3 days later, the diplomatic party had transferred to the UEA battlecruiser Indomitable as it led a small flotilla of human ships toward Eridani space. Ambassador Thila stood on the bridge alongside Commander Rivera, watching as human crew efficiently operated stations that seemed chaotic and redundant to Eridani sensibilities. Your ship designs are unusual, Thila observed. Multiple backup systems, decentralized command structures. Rivera nodded. Redundancy keeps us alive. If one system fails, another takes over. If one command center is destroyed, operations continue from another. Before Thila could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. A tactical officer called out, multiple contacts detected. Energy signatures matched the Vex profiles provided by the Eridani. Red alert, Rivera ordered calmly. Battle stations. On the main view screen, 3 angular black vessels appeared, their surfaces covered with pulsing red veins. They moved with unnatural precision, accelerating toward the human Eridani flotilla. They must have been monitoring the nebula. Thila's luminescence pulsed with alarm. This is a standard Vex hunting formation. They'll target our largest vessels first with concentrated fire. Rivera's expression hardened. Not if we break their formation first. All ships, execute Maneuver Epsilon. Target their sensor arrays and propulsion systems. To Thila's astonishment, the human vessels suddenly scattered in seemingly random directions. Instead of maintaining distance to exchange long-range fire as Eridani doctrine dictated, the human ships closed to point-blank range, executing tight turns that should have torn their hulls apart. What are you doing? Thila asked, bewildered. Your ships are within their optimal firing range. So are theirs within ours, Rivera replied. The difference is, we're not where they expect us to be. The Vex, accustomed to the predictable defense patterns of the Eridani, appeared confused by these erratic movements. Their formation began to break as they attempted to track the nimble human ships. Now, Rivera ordered. All ships concentrated fire on designated targets. The bridge of the Indomitable shuddered as the main cannons discharged, striking a Vex vessel precisely where its shields were weakest. Simultaneously, the other human ships executed similar precision strikes. Thila watched in amazement as one Vex ship listed to the side, its propulsion systems damaged. A second took heavy damage to its weapon arrays. The third attempted to retreat but was cut off by 2 human destroyers that seemed to anticipate its escape vector. How did you know they would break formation like that? Thila asked as the human flotilla regrouped, damage reports showing minimal losses. Commander Rivera's face grew serious. Because we understand what they don't expect. They faced your predictable tactics for years, but humans, she paused, we've spent much of our history fighting each other. We know what it means to adapt or die. For the first time since the war began, Ambassador Thila felt genuine hope flicker within her. As the human ships escorted the stellar harmony toward Eridani Prime, she realized she was witnessing the beginning of an alliance that might just save her people and perhaps change the course of galactic history. Turning the tide. The main engineering bay of Eridani Station Prisma bustled with activity as human and Eridani technicians worked side by side. Sparks cascaded from junction points where human welding techniques merged with Eridani crystalline technology. The air carried the scent of ozone and unfamiliar chemicals, a physical reminder of how quickly two vastly different civilizations have begun to integrate. Historian Kelmar observed the scene with fascination, his luminescent patterns shifting with excitement as he recorded the unprecedented exchange of knowledge between species. For 10 cycles, his role had been to document Eridani achievements and cultural evolution, but now he found himself recording something extraordinary. "Remarkable, isn't it?" said a voice beside him. Kelmar turned to see Ambassador Thela, who had largely transitioned to a liaison role since the alliance formed 3 weeks ago. "Our engineers couldn't understand why human ships move so erratically," Kelmar replied. "Now they're rebuilding our propulsion systems based on human designs." Across the bay, a human engineer named Sato was demonstrating a device to a group of attentive Eridani technicians. Her hands moved quickly as she disassembled what appeared to be a shield modulator. "The problem with your shields," Sato explained, "is that they're consistent, same strength across the entire field. Efficient, yes, but predictable. Our adaptive shielding redirects power to where impacts are most likely." One of the Eridani engineers tilted her head in confusion. "But how do you know where the impacts will come from?" Sato grinned. "We don't. The system reacts in microseconds, learning from each hit. It's not perfect, but in combat, unpredictability keeps you alive." Kelmar noted this exchange carefully in his records. The concept seemed obvious once stated, yet it had never occurred to Eridani engineers. Why? Later, in the station's communal dining area, Kelmar approached Commander Rivera with this question. The human was eating alone, methodically consuming a plate of adapted rations. "May I join you?" Kelmar asked hesitantly. Rivera gestured to the empty seat. "Historian, right? I've seen you watching us." Kelmar settled his slim frame into the chair. "I've been wondering about something fundamental. Your technology isn't actually more advanced than ours in many areas, yet your approaches are so different. Why?" Rivera set down her utensil and considered the question. "How long has your species been at peace before the Vex came?" "The Confederation has maintained harmony for over 700 cycles," Kelmar answered with pride. "That's your answer?" Rivera took a drink from her cup. "Humans have had perhaps 50 years of unified peace in our entire history. Before that, constant conflict. Tribe against tribe, nation against nation, colony against colony." Kelmar's luminescence dimmed slightly. "You evolved through warfare. We evolved through competition, adaptation, and survival," Rivera corrected. "War was just the most extreme expression. Every technology we developed was immediately tested against countermeasures. Our shields had to adapt because someone was always developing new weapons to penetrate them." As their conversation continued, alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Both rushed to the command center where High Counselor Evren was already reviewing incoming data. "We've intercepted Vex communications," Evren announced as they entered. "They're calling for reinforcements from their core territory. A massive fleet, at least 3 times anything we faced." The holographic display showed the projected path of the Vex reinforcements cutting directly through former Eridani colonies that now served as Vex staging grounds. "Time estimate?" Rivera asked. 28 days, perhaps less," answered the tactical officer. A heavy silence fell over the command center. Even with their recent victories in technological exchange, a force that size would overwhelm them. Rivera studied the map, eyes narrowing on a particular point, a former Eridani mining colony, now serving as the main Vex forward base. "What if they never arrive?" she asked quietly. Evren's luminescent patterns shifted in confusion. "Explain." "We've been playing defense," hitting them when they come to us. But there's another approach. Rivera pointed to the Vex base. We strike first, hard. Take out their staging area before the reinforcements arrive. Evren stared at the human. That would mean sending our fleet deep into occupied territory. Exactly, said Rivera. They won't expect it. The Vex think they understand your people now. Cautious, defensive, predictable. They don't realize what you're becoming with us. Kelmar watched the exchange, suddenly understanding something profound about humans. Their history of conflict hadn't merely shaped their technology. It had forged a mindset that the peaceful Eridani had never needed to develop, until now. 15 days later, the joint fleet moved through the darkness of space, a formation of Eridani and human vessels advancing steadily toward what had once been Nova Haven Colony. Now it served as the main Vex staging ground, its once peaceful mining facilities converted into weapon factories and shipyards. High Counselor Evren stood on the bridge of the flagship Crystal Defender, his luminescence dimmed to barely perceptible levels. The displays showed their fleet, 12 Eridani cruisers and 20 human vessels of various sizes. It represented nearly half their combined military strength, a gamble that left their home territories vulnerable if this mission failed. Approaching outer sensor range, reported the navigation officer. Stealth systems functioning within parameters. Evren nodded, glancing at Commander Rivera, who stood nearby studying tactical displays. The humans' modified stealth technology had been rapidly adapted to the larger Eridani ships, another example of their remarkable technological integration. Any sign they've detected us? Evren asked. Negative. Vex communication channels show routine traffic only. Rivera's lips curved into that expression the Eridani had learned to recognize as satisfaction. Surprise is still on our side. The plan was bold but straightforward. Strike quickly at the shipyards and command centers, destroy as much infrastructure as possible, then retreat before the Vex could mount an organized defense. The human ships would lead the assault, using their superior maneuverability to confuse enemy targeting systems, while the more powerful Eridani cruisers would deliver the main destructive blows. As they entered the outer reaches of the system, tension mounted on the bridge. Every officer knew the importance of this mission. If successful, it would delay the Vex reinforcements, possibly buying months of precious time. If it failed, nearly half their fighting capability would be lost in a single battle. Multiple Vex patrol ships detected, announced the sensor officer. They're changing course. They've spotted us. All ships, attack formation, ordered Evren. Commence Operation Spearhead. The human vessels accelerated suddenly, breaking into seemingly chaotic patterns that somehow maintained their advance toward the main Vex base. The Eridani cruisers followed in more measured formation, charging their main weapon arrays. The first exchanges of fire lit up the void. Vex patrol ships, caught unprepared by the human tactics, fell quickly. But as the battle progressed, a Vex dreadnought emerged from behind the moon of Nova Haven, a massive ship not indicated in their intelligence reports. New contact, shouted the tactical officer. Energy readings off the scale. The dreadnought's main cannon fired, the beam cutting through space and striking an Eridani cruiser. The vessel's shields flared brightly before collapsing, and the ship broke apart in a cascade of crystalline fragments. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Evren ordered, but his words caught in his throat as he watched 3 human destroyers accelerate directly toward the dreadnought. What are they doing? He asked, bewildered. Ambassador Thela, who had insisted on joining the mission, stepped forward. Something unpredictable. The human ships executed a complex series of maneuvers, drawing the dreadnought's fire while appearing to retreat. But as the massive Vex vessel adjusted its position to pursue, the true purpose of the human tactics became clear. They had maneuvered the dreadnought into position for the Eridani cruisers to target its propulsion systems simultaneously. Now, Rivera commanded over the fleet-wide channel. 6 Eridani cruisers fired in perfect synchronization, their crystalline energy beams converging on the dreadnought's engines. The massive ship shuddered, its red veins flickering as secondary explosions cascaded across its hull. All ships, focus fire on these coordinates. Rivera transmitted targeting data highlighting vulnerable junctions in the Vex vessel's structure. The combined firepower of the human Eridani fleet tore through the weakened sections of the dreadnought. As the massive ship began to break apart, Rivera ordered a shift in focus to the planetary installations below. Over the next 2 hours, the Alliance forces systematically destroyed shipyards, weapons factories, and command centers. When the Vex attempted to mount a counteroffensive, they found themselves outmaneuvered by human unpredictability and overwhelmed by Eridani firepower. As the fleet regrouped for the return journey, damage reports showed losses far below their worst estimates: 3 Eridani cruisers and 5 human vessels. In exchange, they had eliminated the Vex's main forward base and its supporting fleet. On the bridge of the Crystal Defender, Evren's luminescence brightened with hope as he turned to Rivera. "How did you know they would commit their dreadnought so early in the battle?" Rivera's face grew serious. "We didn't. We planned for 20 different scenarios and adapted when the actual situation presented itself. That's what humans do. We improvise." 6 months later, historian Kelmar stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Unity station, which orbited at the boundary between Eridani and human space. Below him, representatives from both species mingled at the formal dedication ceremony, their differences obvious yet somehow complementary. Ambassador Thela joined him, her luminescence pulsing with contentment. "The Vex retreated beyond the outer rim last week. Our long-range probes confirm they've abandoned their remaining outposts in our sector." "They didn't expect to face a united front," Kelmar replied. "Especially not one that combined Eridani technological precision with human adaptability." Together they watched as High Counselor Evren and the Human Alliance presidents signed the formal treaty establishing the Concordat, a mutual defense and cultural exchange agreement that would bind their species together for generations to come. "What happens now?" Kelmar asked. Thela's luminescence shifted to a pattern of contemplation. "We learn from each other. The humans teach us to adapt, to think beyond established patterns. We teach them the benefits of harmony and long-term thinking. And if the Vex return, then they will face something they could never predict: 2 species that have become stronger together than either could be alone." Thela's luminescence brightened with determination. "That is a force not even the Vex Collective can overcome." As the treaty signing concluded to applause from both species, Kelmar knew he was witnessing the beginning of a new chapter in galactic history, one that would be written together in ways neither humans nor Eridani could have imagined before their paths crossed in the darkness of space.